Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bristol Town Council meeting of January 8th, 2020. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. As we periodically have the opportunity to do, we're going to celebrate some local success. In front of us and behind you is the Mount Hope High School girls tennis team Division II champions, and we have both coaches. It's Jeff and Tim. Am I correct with that? If you guys could come up, share the road to success, and also, girls, if you could stand next to them, we'd love to introduce all of you. Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you. This year we went 12-1 in Division II play, getting our way into the state tournament, Division II state tournament, where we defeated Lincoln in the quarterfinals. We defeated Narragansett in the semifinals, and then had a close match, 4-1, and we defeated Punagansett in the championship to win our first D2 championship and the second in school history for girls tennis.
Outstanding.
All right.
There it is.
Excellent job.
And then my assistant coach, Tim Thorpe, who will introduce all the players.
Surprise.
You didn't know you were doing that, did you, Tim?
Didn't know I was doing this. We'll just go right down the line. Co-captains, Jillian Parker and Meg Dolan. Annie Krzwicki. Katie Quinnell. Maddie Rodriguez. Just showed up. What's up?
Yeah, I scrolled in.
Miss Estrella. Sarah Macedo. Eva White. And Marissa Stragla.
That's outstanding. We are so proud of your accomplishment. We get the opportunity like this every once in a while, and we love celebrating your success. I have a citation here signed by this council and the administrator and the clerk, but I'd also like to give kudos to Tony Texera. He actually brought this to our attention to make sure that we were recognizing this great achievement. It's absolutely outstanding. So we're going to give you another round of applause on that.
Thank you.
And if you could come up so I can give you the citation. Co-captains, right?
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Awesome job. Thank you so much.
We have a lot to be proud of and what's coming.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Congratulations. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council. The first item on this evening's agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. There's a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item is submission of minutes of previous meetings, items A1 and A2.
Motion to approve.
Second. There's a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the second reading for adoption of Ordinance 2019-18. This has to do with mobile food establishments, also known as food trucks. This was continued from your December 18th meeting.
Mr. Solicitor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we were actually premature in submitting this to the council in December. And because of a number of regulatory changes and interpretations that came down after the state law was passed, we feel that what is in front of you this evening would not be in the best interest of the town. We're having that ordinance revamped. What we'd like to do is actually have the introduction of a brand new, completely updated ordinance at your January 29th meeting with a second reading at the February 19th meeting. So this evening, I'd ask that you actually reject this because the one you're going to be getting next meeting is the good one.
All right, well, motion to reject the second reading for adoption and to continue this, the food truck ordinance.
Yeah, you don't have to continue because
Okay.
we're going to start with a new first reading. So just
Excellent.
reject.
Okay.
Second. There's a motion and a second to reject. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, is Ordinance 2019-20. This creates a no parking space on Milford Street. This is the second reading for adoption. I also bring to the Council's attention the item F3, which is a petition of a budding neighbor, and also the late item provided relative to this amount, this item by the Bristol Police Department.
So at the moment, what's in front of us is C2, second reading, correct?
Yes, sir.
Are we taking them both? Are you suggesting that we take them both together?
Well, I think you should, before you take any action, you should review all of the above.
Okay, the late item.
Right.
And Lou,
They're all related.
so for clarity, F3 was the late item that you speak of?
It's actually F3 was not the late item, but that is related. But there is a late item related to F3, which was provided by the police department, which is in the pile of late items.
Would it make sense to just do a motion to bring F3 forward? And
Or combine the two?
Can we or can we not do
Yeah,
it?
you can, and I would recommend that you handle these together because they're so interrelated.
Right.
Okay. So
I'll move that we bring F3 forward so that we can talk about it as a whole.
Second.
About those.
there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So, Chief, could you, since this was a late item, could you speak to this late item?
Yes, we sent the officers out once again to measure the road width. And as a new chief, certainly these types of requests are new to me in my 30-plus years of public service. So I've spoken to the town administrator, and I would request that the council give me up to 90 days to review this particular option, as we've learned that it's certainly not the police chief's decision to, remove or add parking, but I would like to do some research for the council to see what other communities are doing with streets that are narrow. What are they doing when people are asking for creature comforts or backing out of their driveway with ease? I want to personally go over there and actually attempt to pull out of the driveway myself, put a car behind it, and to see how difficult the task really is. It seems as though that every month that I've been here, we've had a request to review these types of situations. So I do have some of the officers on the police department calling some of the other communities like Newport, Central Falls, Pawtucket, Providence, up in the college, the university area, that have narrow streets, restricted parking, to see what their police department is doing and recommending, so that I kind of have a barometer to make these formal recommendations. With your permission, I would like some time to do that particular research, if you so fit and the town administrator seem fit.
So just for clarity, you're asking for 90 days in regards to the petition for a new no parking? Or are you asking for this encompassing what is currently in front of us as a second reading?
I would ask for both. I'd ask that you take pause on making a final decision.
Okay.
At least I don't have a full recommendation for the council. You certainly can make a decision, but I don't have a full recommendation. I'd like some time to make sure that I get it right.
The chief and I spoke I don't know if it was yesterday, and you were very clear to say that how we handle no parking is unique in the state, I think was a nice way. I'm paraphrasing, right? So I personally appreciate
I think I used the word anomaly.
Yes, there was something before it, too. Regardless, I know that you had some concerns. I'm absolutely, I think 90 days is an appropriate time to review and come back with a recommendation. But, Mr. Solicitor, you look like you want to share something on this.
Just that I think it's important for the council to be consistent, and so if you're undergoing this review, I would heartily recommend that you also wait on the C2
Right.
that is before you, because it's the same exact street.
Right.
You want to make consistent decisions.
Right. I think there's
Absolutely
no
agree.
question that you are right, that this is a big issue in Bristol, as are trees. Tree limbs and other things are very big topics that we have.
So, in regards to this, if we're holding off 90 days, we should then also hold off 90 days on any no parking. Would that be, in fact,
That would certainly make sense.
to be
but-
consistent with this?
But
So-
certainly with respect to the two items you've combined, I would have a motion to continue both for 90 days.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Did you?
Just,
I wanted to recognize you because you're there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
my name is Diane Gibbery, and I do live at 3 Milford Street. I want to thank the chief wholeheartedly for taking the time to put the thought into reviewing this and taking the 90 days to come up with something that you're comfortable with and that I think would benefit the street that I live on. And I just wanted to say to him, thank you very much, and I appreciate it. And for the town council members that I have spoken to, I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Mr. Clerk, what is 90 days? What is our next meeting? Where should we continue this to?
So, April 1 would take that into full effect.
April Fool's Day. Excellent. Excellent.
Well, that's a little less than 90 days, I think.
That would give us the 90 days? Okay.
More or less. I mean, you could go to April 29th, which would be considerably more than that.
Oh, yeah,
so.
yeah.
All right. So Mary, was your motion, so April 1st is okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
And there was a second on that? Is there any objection? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Now,
Thank you.
can I just ask one quick question to the chief? Would you be looking at some of the more recent ones we've also approved on this, and just to kind of go review them, just, not that we would make changes necessarily, but just to see what we have done? Because I think just in the last couple of months, there's probably been a handful of these as well.
I think that would have to be a decision for the council. I think I would rest my decision on what I found with existing ordinances in other communities, and certainly there's always going to be unique situations when you have a handicapped person or a person that has special controls on their vehicle. So there's certainly always going to be times where you're going to have to, weigh in and make judgment decisions. But I think my research will look at what are the other communities doing in similar type requests, whether or not there's any ordinances that exist in those particular towns and cities, and looking at. We certainly will go out, and each time that there's one coming in, and provide measurements and take a look. But it seems as though that I'd like to personally get a little bit involved and go out to that particular address and view it myself. It's not that I don't trust the officers, but I think we're trying to lean the process out. Whether it kind of ends up on a consent calendar like the curb cut to do, or a recommendation from the police department for the council, I'm open. I could speak to the chairperson and maybe meet with you folks to see with my findings and how you might want to lean the process out, for council time. But
I think it's great that you're going to look at it like from a holistic perspective. I mean, we do get a lot of these, and if you go up and down some of these streets, there's like literally no parking, because they're either no parking because of a driveway, or it's very, very difficult, especially on the narrower streets, and especially in downtown, like many of the places off of Wood Street, for example, the narrow streets where there's multiple, multifamily homes with many, many, many vehicles.
I'm told that Newport had a policy and a plan where the council made those particular decisions, but they have a moratorium on it unless there's a medical or a handicap related request, because they have limited parking, narrow streets, but they have a lot of foot traffic like we're getting now down in the business. And
Well, thank you very much. I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to thank you.
Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council. The next item is the petition of Edward Correa for the Bristol 4th of July Committee requests use of the Town Common from June 25th through July 5th of 2020. You have recommendations provided by the Town Administrator, Fire Chief, and late item recommendations from the DPW and Parks and Recreation.
Mr. Chairman, based on the recommendations, I move that we approve it. the request.
I'll second the motion, just with the understanding that they need to contact the DPW at least 1 week in advance to, convey what their trash pickup plan is going to be.
Well, I guess it's true what they say in Bristol, right? Once 4th of July is over, it's Christmas, and then once Christmas is over, it's 4th of July, right? There's only 2 main holidays.
Right.
So we have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item F2, and this was a petition from the East Bay Warriors Football and Spirit to serve alcoholic beverages at the Maritime Center for the previously approved bingo, and the group has withdrawn their request officially.
Do we need a receive and file, Lou?
Yes, sir.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the first item under your public service appointment section. This is for the Bristol Housing Authority. There are 2 positions, one with term to expire in January of 2021 and one with a term to expire in January of 2024. You have 4 applicants. All have been interviewed. Edward Correa, David Simos, Helen Tina Barboza, and Manuel E. DeRosa.
Before I take a motion on this for appointment, I just wanted to say thank you again to all 4 candidates. It was a pleasure to talk to all of them. We're very fortunate to have so many people interested in giving back to the community, not only on this board, but all boards. But it was a particular positive interview session, so I wanted to thank everybody for that. So,
Mr. Chairman, I have to concur with you. There were 4 strong candidates, but obviously we have to make a decision for 2. And with that, I would make a motion that we appoint Ed Correa.
To which position, Councilman?
To-
We have a January 2021 and January 2024 expiration.
Let's do 2021.
is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And for the second?
I would nominate Tina Barboza.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay. The next item is the Board of Tax Assessment Review. This is a full member with term to expire in December of 2022, and Democrat and Republican alternates with term to expire in 2022 and 2021, respectively. You have the nominations put forth from the Democrat Town Committee for their Democrat alternate, Tracy Ramus, currently serving.
I make a motion that we appoint or reappoint, right, the 2 candidates based on the recommendations of the chairs.
Second the motion.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the continued from December 18th. This was Councilwoman Perella's request that the town solicitor examine state regulations concerning classification of dancing and entertainment licenses. You will recall that the council did ask me to contact the legislature. In the interim, the solicitor discovered that there was already existing state statute and is recommending an amendment to that particular part of the general laws, which hopefully will put Bristol on the path that the council would like to follow.
Councilman Perella, I know you had some. I'm sorry, Mr. Clark, I didn't mean to stop
No, that's
you there.
okay.
So, I know you wanted to share some info on
Right,
this.
well, I spoke with Mike about this and a couple of other people. This isn't exactly what I intended. So I'm not saying it's not a good idea to go down this path in terms of business friendliness or to eliminate small businesses having to come in because they're going to have a brunch and they're going to have a piano. I don't have a problem with that, but it doesn't really get to the heart of what I feel is the issue with a one-size-fits-all dancing and entertainment license as the state has. It's basically you can come in and get a dancing and entertainment license for an acoustical guitar and you can end up having like heavy metal or whatever because it's the same license. And it's never really made a lot of sense to me as a council person. It seems to me like that the state needs to address this issue similar to the way they handle liquor licenses, like BV limited licenses, so that we have a sense. It may be on, I spoke with Mike, he talked about, you can't discriminate on the type of music, but maybe you can do it on the sound, the amplification and so forth. And I think that I just think at the state level, there needs to be multiple, at least 2 different categories, if not more, so that we know if we give a license that is going to be like, say, category A with might be limited amplification, or that we're not going to end up with some hardcore heavy metal rock band music because a restaurant or a club gets into hard times financially, and that's what's going to sell. That's my concern, and that is something that I don't think it's a matter of at the legislative level. I don't think it's a matter of getting everyone, 39 cities and towns, all on the same page. I think this is a legislative issue, a policy issue, that maybe they may have good reason for it. It may just be the way it's always been done, and no one's really talked about it. So I'm suggesting that we maybe do parallel tracks. One is if we want to go with what Mike is suggesting, which is basically a carve-out for Bristol to, if it passes, that we could just put that in our policies, procedures, whatever, that they are allowed to have this, to have non-amplified music, background music, that type of thing, without a license. And it would really have to be an enforcement issue to make sure that that is what they're living up to. And that would probably make a lot of businesses very happy. And I think that's fine, but I also think we should pursue this other issue that I'm talking about, that I've been talking about for several times. So my suggestion, I was curious to hear what my colleagues had to say about what Mike is suggesting, and whether or not there would be, something to take a vote on tonight, or to put that off until the next meeting on what is before us now, each one, and then also to work on. And I'm not even suggesting, Mike, you have to draft that legislation. My original intent was to have the legislators, through a letter, understand what the issue is and let Leg Council take that on, and if there's something they want to take on. So.
After you and I spoke today, I had another thought when you were just talking about amplified versus non-amplified, which legally we can do because this is First Amendment stuff as opposed to liquor licenses. Mm-hmm. If you do go with this particular legislation, this gives you the right to enact an ordinance to regulate, prohibit, et cetera. So in other words, at least for the town of Bristol, and I understand your view is global, but for the town of Bristol, we would be able to restrict the license that we give out to, okay, you can have this, but it can't be amplified. Or you can have it and it can be amplified, but here's the decibel level. So there are ways we can control it with this legislation. But you're right, it would not, obviously wouldn't be statewide.
But how would we do that how would that, I'm just curious.
Yes.
And we don't have to discuss it at length now, you can give me the answer another time. But how does that hold water if it's challenged because it's just one town that's doing our own, entertainment licenses, when isn't there a right, because under state law, that they have that right to have anything once they get a license?
But if the state or the General Assembly passes this legislation, it would then enable you, Bristol, to do it. So it would be legal in Bristol, it wouldn't be legal in other places.
Well, the only, as I mentioned to people on the phone today, when I spoke about this, I do think that at the very least, depending on what my colleagues feel, not only would this be good for local businesses that really just want a small activity once in a while, but also it will definitely generate the discussion as to why we're asking for this, and it would give an opportunity to talk about some of the issues. I'm a believer. I know people don't like to hear this, but I am personally a believer that legislation also is a way to educate people, like our legislators, on issues that they may not encounter every day. And I think this is one way to do that. But I do think this is a much broader issue than what is before us. So that's my point.
So I agree. I think that this is an opportunity for us to kind of go up and down where we believe it's necessary. Currently, when we give a business a dancing and entertainment license, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Mr. Solicitor, but we have that discussion right at the beginning, and as long as the applicant agrees to those terms, then they have to follow those terms. This would kind of take it the next step, and there would be no discussion about that. We would say, for example, to paraphrase, Class A, Class B, Class C, and it would be different levels. And I don't think Mary hates rock and roll or loud rock and roll. I think you could have a lot of bagpipes, right? You've been to St. Mary's and had bagpipes there, and they're really loud. I don't know if I'd want those at 2 a.m. So, I mean, anything, and obviously I'm joking around, but I think it's an opportunity. I also think I agree with you, is that bringing this to our legislators' focus might actually help other communities. Now, whether they want to adopt it is totally their call, but it would give them the right, or give them the authorization to do so.
Mike, I had a question in regards to the noise ordinance. I mean, doesn't this really encompass, I mean, wouldn't that come into effect if they exceeded that amount?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean,
we have successfully used the town's noise ordinance against an individual who was playing music too loud, and on his own without a lawyer, he went all the way to the Rhode Island Supreme Court with it, and the court upheld it. So it works, it's effective, it's a matter of enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So with this particular legislation, this would be regulating how many acoustical instruments?
Well, I think, as Mary pointed out, the critical part of this legislation is that if you're going to just do what we define as incidental entertainment, you don't even have to come for a license.
Yeah.
So if there's just acoustical instruments, or it's music in the background, a piano, whatever, the business doesn't even have to come before you. That will be permitted.
And
it's
that's
only if you go beyond that. If you're going to have a concert, if you're going to have dancing, if you're going to have a live band, that's when you would come before the council, and then this legislation gives you the right to come up with some regulations. And what I would do in drafting an ordinance, for instance, this already exists in Providence and elsewhere, so I could look and see what type of standards they have placed in their ordinances, depending on how you want to move forward.
I think one of the things, Tim, that disturbs me about a local restaurant will come in and they'll decide, in the winter, to really get some business going, that they're going to do a brunch and they're going to do maybe an acoustical guitar, and they have to come in for a license. Mm-hmm. And they come in for the license, and we grant the license. Mm-hmm. But now they have this license, and I'm not saying anybody's going to do this, but you never know. They have this license that allows them to do anything from that acoustical guitar to anything else that would then impact the neighborhood. It may not just be the decibel level on the outside, but the cars, the traffic, the type of crowd, whatever. So it seems to me that having that one license that expands from this to this that's what doesn't make sense to me.
Right, the wide scope.
Yeah.
Well, the way I was looking at it was it seems like this is a business-friendly ordinance, because you're essentially telling these guys, hey, look, you don't have to bother at 7 o'clock at night on a Wednesday when you're trying to manage your bar or your restaurant or anything like that, to take time away from doing that and coming in to get this license for acoustic people. I remember Christians had to do that at one point, and so that's what I really like about this, is that, and then if we move forward with this, we can decide whether or not to go above and beyond this if we want to. We might decide that, you know what, we don't really want to. If there's, maybe 5 acoustic instruments or something like that, or if you get rid of the acoustic instruments, Mr. Solicitor, and just keep the incidental background, we might decide that that's sufficient, and we don't have to do it.
It's enabling legislation. Once it gets passed, then we can decide locally what type of ordinance that we want to enact.
And it's not a one and done, meaning it's a live document. If we find that what we end up doing is not successful, we can always augment it. Right. So Mary, I'm not cutting anybody off.
If people are prepared to vote on this today, then that's fine with me. And if not, then we can hold it off. But I mean, I do think this is important for all the reasons mentioned and discussed here. So I'm not opposed to this. I'm just saying maybe with what you're saying, that we'd have the right to change ours, maybe that would work. I just was concerned when I read through this that it wasn't addressing what I view as part of that very critical issue, you know? So it does help the local businesses, and that's the good part about it, but...
That first sentence would help you to distinguish between dancing, concerts, amplification or not, etc. So it gives you lots of latitude because the authorization is to regulate or prohibit. There's certain things you could prohibit. So,
I mean, if people are prepared, I mean, I would move that we, you know, pass, that we act, what do we need to do? Do we need to just send it to our legislators, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So, because that is going to take time for them to get it drafted in their format, and even though this is, but, you know, their numbers and so forth.
And you have a resolution in front of you, so I think the motion would be to adopt the resolution supporting the legislation and having it transferred to our legislators.
And to continue the research on what a local ordinance would look like for
absolutely
dancing and entertainment, being able to put categories together.
And I think also we need to also explore the indoor establishment versus outdoor establishment as well, and how this all applies.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because I think it's really important, you know. If I want to play my French horn in front of Portside and, you know, but I'm below the decibel levels, I go for it, right?
It's a huge following for that, I understand, yes.
Anything, ask
I'm
me.
sorry. So that was a motion. Is there a second to that effect?
Second.
Is there a discussion?
Okay, so the motion was to approve this language as it's written, but what you had talked about, Mr. Solicitor, was maybe jettisoning the 3 acoustic instruments language.
Right. So all those specifics, after this enabling legislation gets adopted by the General Assembly and signed by the governor, then it comes back to you and we'll develop an ordinance. So this enables you to adopt an ordinance later, and all those specifics would be incorporated into an ordinance.
Just because this passes the legislature doesn't mean anything until we do our own
you don't even
ordinance.
have to. You can take what you like or not from it, yes.
So it allows us to take the next step, whether or not it's 2, 17, or 50 acoustic instruments. We make those calls as we take the next step. This is our authorization to do so. Everybody okay? Okay. So there's a motion and a second to adopt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item I-1, and this is from the town administrator regarding the new trash and recycling cart sizes.
Great. Mr. Administrator.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
It's kind of sad that we've been waiting for this moment, isn't it?
Trash carts.
To talk trash.
The Director McBride is nearing the point in the process where he has to order the trash and recycling carts for the automated system, long anticipated. He's here with a recommendation, and he has some sizes and models, but we were looking for a consent from the council before we go ahead with the order. Director, would you like to give your recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Members of the council, I think you can see in front of you here this evening a representation of the various size receptacles that we've looked at. And real quickly, I don't think I need to spend a lot of time on this, but I wanted to give you a quick little background on where I got to with this. I've been looking into this for quite some time now. Started when Mr. Texera was the administrator, and we started looking into this automation and moving forward, and what's the right thing to do for Bristol. So I think it's important for the residents of the town to understand that this isn't, shooting from the hip, so to speak, in a quick decision. There's been a lot of research into this. I think even Councilman Lay has done a lot of work on this as well, and I don't want to take away from that. But real quickly, relative to the trash receptacles, we originally started out...
You need to settle down back there if you would. Yeah, thank you.
Originally started out, my gut feeling was 95-gallon was what would be the right thing to do for the town. And let me explain to where I came from with that. Since this town closed its dump in 2000, 2001, about that time frame, there's been a policy in place where residents could discard up to 4 30-gallon trash barrels of trash, 120 gallons, if you will, of volume. So going to a 95-gallon receptacle was a 20% reduction in that volume from the policy. So I felt that was an equitable drop, pushing our recycling effort, which is the key element behind this for a moment. I'll get to the recycling in a second. As you know, a couple of months ago, we looked at what's the right thing to do for the commercial trash, and we went with the twin 95 trash, 95 recycling, with the opportunity to purchase a second 95 recycling for the commercial businesses. Again, as I look at this, and we're going to have to order for the town for mass distribution, and it's not, if you will, have it your way, so to speak. We have to figure out what is the right thing for mass distribution. So as we looked at it, and we've looked at data from various communities around the state, there is a fairly sizable reduction in trash when you go to the automation, when you go to this type of process. So I know there's been a lot of discussion about the size, the magnitude, how are we going to be able to handle this? How is this going to fit in the downtown area? And we looked at, if you look in front of you, you see the green receptacle is the 95-gallon. And the blue one is representative of 65-gallon, although the colors represent the recycling and the trash. But you can see the differences in the size. So I would submit to you that the thing that concerned me initially was the going from 120-gallon volume down to a 95, and then looking at a 65-gallon, if we so desire to do that, to try to reduce our trash volume overall. Can we do that? I would say that there are residences in this community that exceed the 120-gallon requirement, and there are many of those that don't even reach the 65-gallon. So in order to pitch you my recommendation, looking at a 65-gallon for a multitude of reasons, the operability from an elderly person's perspective, for example, limited space within a residence for storage. And we brought those in here so you could see how the space sets up, and they're not really a whole lot different vertically or horizontally from one another. So I would say maybe the council would want to consider the 65-gallon, but I would throw out a caveat that maybe we offer an opportunity that if a resident expresses a desire to go to the 95-gallon, then I take a look at that. We're kind of flipping where we were going before, where we said give them the 95, and if they needed 65, we'd do that. Let's look at it the other way around, and maybe the 65 is the way to go, and then I take a look at it if we need to go to the 95, if there's a need for that. One of the things that I'm concerned about is when we look at the recycling now, we take a look at that recycling piece, and that's the big effort that's driving the train here. We're trying to boost up the recycling in town. We've taken a lot of different steps over the last few years. We've gone to the no bin, no barrel, et cetera, things of that nature. And now we're at the next step for automation. We originally looked at 95-gallon receptacles for the recycling to offer that greater volume to take care of that. But not only that, we also want to consider collecting the recycling every other week. So do we offer enough capacity for that additional recycling, with a 95, or if we decide to go to the 65, is that going to be enough to get us for every other week collection? And again, I submit to you that if the council so desires, the 65, then we look at if somebody shows a need, hey, look, we can do better than this. Can you get me a 95-gallon receptacle? Then I would certainly entertain that as well. So I'm just kind of flipping what we were originally thinking about. Maybe the 65s are what we run with, and then have the opportunity to upgrade should a resident need to do so. Again, I want you to keep in mind that we went twin 95s with the businesses, so I've got to figure out how we order all of this collectively. And we also distribute uniformly at one time. So hopefully that gives a little bit of a background on where we got to from A to B, and then where we are today for the decision point. And I'd certainly be open to questions.
What is the capacity of the blue bins that we currently have?
They are 22 gallons.
They are?
Yes. So basically what you're looking at in the blue recycled container you see in front of you would be 3 of them. And then a little 4+ on the green for the 95.
So a couple of points. First, thank you. That was clear. And I got to tell you, yesterday morning at 9:31, I said 95's the way to go. You brought both of those in. I went, whoa, my goodness, that 95 is one big container. So it was much larger than I thought. Now, when you look at those side to side, I equate this very much like when we go and pick a Christmas tree every year. My kids and wife go, yeah, this one will fit in the house. And then you bring it in the house, you go, oh my God. I think that might be partially true with those here now. They look bigger than they're going to be outside. I think that from the conversations that we've all had, that 65 seems like an appropriate size. But I got to tell you a couple things. First one is we're looking at this automated for a lot of reasons, including cost savings, but workman's comp. And workman's comp was obviously a cost savings, but they're human beings. They're people that work for the town that are getting hurt. And this is a way to make those repetitive injuries go away. So this is dollars-based, but this is also this is the right thing to do. You've mentioned choice. I think that is absolutely important, that we have a lot of people, whether they're seniors or otherwise, that a 95 is a massive thing that wouldn't fit, don't have the space for it, and don't need it. For myself, I don't know what I need. I got to tell you, I put 4 recycling bins out every week. That means the 65 is not going to work for me. You know, I mean, I'm going to fill that and exceed it. And the really important point, too, is that right now, if you've got 2 trash bags and it's Christmas and you put an extra 2 out, we pick it up. We do this, we're not picking it up. And I don't care what size it is that there is no sidecar, there is no extra, there is no, well, we had a party, so I just put this out. No, it's all got to go in there and the lid's got to close, right? So,
exactly. And I think it's good to highlight, Mr. Chairman, that we have multitude of special days within this community. I mean, we have Christmas, and we have a month of 4th of July, when you get right down to it, with all the concerts. At least a good solid week anyway, and then the after effect. I will tell you that we plus up our collection efforts after the 4th of July, after Christmas. And what I mean by plussing it up, I put more trucks out for recycling and more trucks out for trash. So we're a little bit different than other communities. I spoke with the Public Works Director from the town of Warren, who just implemented about a month and a half ago, middle of November. They've already seen a reduction in the trash volume, a measurable one. But he also told me that he couldn't find the volume within the barrels with the trash that people were putting out to include the recycling was just overwhelmed, and they did twin 95s.
Can you tell us that again? You just said that they didn't have enough space for what they were throwing out?
He said they exceeded the 95-gallon capacity for each, both trash and the recycling, during that, say, week-long effort. You know, the Christmas, post-New Year's effort. They don't have a 4th of July similar to what we do, although their summer is certainly similar to ours in the downtown area. They haven't gone through that yet. They're still in the infancy of their program. And I just throw that out only as food for thought. But also, I tried to get a hold of Coventry because they're a different type of community, but they went with the 65 trash and they went with the 95 recycling. And I wanted to get an idea where they stood with that because I believe they eventually went to the rotating week on the recycling collection. Just to get an idea. I haven't had an opportunity to talk to that individual. We've been kind of missing phone calls.
What do the cities do? Do you know what size Pawtucket has? Because I see them out on the street all the time when I'm going to work.
There was a chart. I don't remember offhand. I mean, I know East Providence has a 95 on the recycling. I know that because I use my dad as a test case. He's 85. And the barrel for the recycling is 95. His trash is a 32-gallon trash barrel, but they pick it up different. But they do the alternate week on the recycling collection.
So are you thinking about... would it be 1 week trash, 1 week recycling?
No, it'd be every week trash. Every week trash, no change from what we're doing today. But what we were trying to do is go to every other week on the recycling collection, which many communities do within the state. That would be a cost savings and operational cost.
Right. So Kevin, here's a question that just runs through my mind on a pretty regular basis when I'm doing trash in the downtown. With all the cars that are parked, how is the truck? I mean, I can see very easily how, and I've seen it, and I've been behind them in other cities and so forth. So are these going to have to be wheeled out further into the road, for example? Because this car is parked, you're not going to be able to get the arm in the truck that close.
Right. What I believe is going to happen in certain streets within the downtown area, the smaller ones, the Noyce, the Pierce, Milk Street, etc., the driver is actually going to have to go to the curb and pull those barrels off the curb and drag them to the vehicle to do it. I mean, there's just no way around it. They're not wide enough today. They won't be lifting the barrel into the truck.
Right.
They'll bring it to the arm to use the automation. So the savings on the personnel side from having to lift the 50 pounds or whatever it may be is still going to be done, but they'll have to wheel the cart out to meet the truck, as opposed to you need a certain amount of space between the barrels, and you need to be able to stack them properly. In the outlying areas, no problem.
Right. I was even thinking, obviously the narrow streets, but I was even thinking like High Street, because where there's houses, like where I live, for example, there's cars, driveway, cars. You know what I mean? So there's like, unless those cars are always going to be gone by the time the trucks would come, you'd have to push them out maybe like where the car would end. Do you know what I mean?
Might have to make particular adjustments in those. And again, as I said in the past, we just don't know exactly what we don't know yet.
Right.
I mean, we're going to go through this operational growing pain, if you will, and it'll take us a month or so to clear it up. And then, driver training to make sure that they can do what they need to do. And they know that there are certain streets they're just going to have to get out of the vehicle and grab.
So to that end, we talk about an implementation of this. 6 weeks, something like that?
Yeah, the target right now is to get the order in immediately, whatever we decide, order the carts, both trash and recycling. Delivery in early March. Part of the delivery process is distribution to the community, which they expect will take 2 weeks to do full distribution. And then once we're at 100% delivery to the residents throughout town, we'll start the automated collection process right after that. So I'm thinking the end of March, beginning first week of April, we'd start. That's a rough timeline. Once I get it ironed out with manufacturer and whatnot, we have these target dates where they'll be in. That's what we'll do. We'll get media out to help us get the word out and educate our residents.
So, Kevin, we put this in, we implemented it. I'm going to use me as an example. 6 weeks goes by, and it turns out I need a larger container.
Yeah, I think at that point, that's a good point to make. We're not going to do immediate changes. We need to work through that to see how it works. Maybe people say, hey, you know what? This is working out for me. I kind of like it, or this isn't working. 6 weeks would probably be the minimum I'd look at, 4 to 6 weeks, and then we'd start saying, okay, if you have issues, let me know. We'll go out, take a look at it, see what's going on, and then work with the community or the residents the best we can to try to, if they need a larger cart, that's what we'd look at.
Mm-hmm. And then, I'm sorry, America.
No, go ahead.
So we have current containers right now. We've talked about disposing of, you cannot recycle our current recycling bins. It's just wacky. And our trash containers, I own a trash container, everybody does. Those can be used, we could label those compost and use for yard waste.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think my recommendation would be if you have trash barrels, a 30-gallon, whatever you're using today, label it compost and start using that for compost. It's a good way to recycle your trash barrel, so to speak. The 22-gallon blue bins that we have, what I'd like to do once we get this program implemented, I'll set up collection dates and we'll get out and grab those from the folks. And I've already talked to Resource Recovery about how we take care of that on their end. So that would be kind of a separate process, but related to what we're doing. And I would look at doing that within the month following implementation.
What if I have a trash can that I want to get rid of?
If you have a trash can that you want to get rid of, two options. You can go to the transfer station. What I was thinking about doing is setting up a collection point there to grab those used trash receptacles, or again, I'll label them as garbage, and then we'd try to pick them up and dispose of them properly.
Do we have a projected cost for the 65, or is it?
No, I mean, that's, okay. Again, this is kind of a flip from what we were looking at. I mean, I think you could probably figure with the volume that we're looking at, I think the last time I looked at it was about $65, and then there's a delivery cost and all of that gets programmed into it, so maybe $70 a piece, something like that. But I'm not. I can't. Don't hold me to that. I have to go back. I call the manufacturer tomorrow.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you remember if the 95s were more expensive than the 65s? Right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
When you send the delivery cost, that would be a company that would be delivering those to the homeowners?
Delivery and distribution is all part of what this company does.
Okay, so it's a package.
So they'll deliver. I have to set up a staging area, a very large staging area for the 18-wheel trucks to come in that have them. Then they send a crew in, actually 2 crews, with a truck and a flatbed small trailer. They load these onto it. We've already created a master Excel spreadsheet with addresses on it, and they upload that into their database, and they scan in the RFID tag, and that gets plugged into the resident that it gets dropped at, each one of those.
So I'd like to just ask my colleagues, does anybody have an objection to 6565 as our initial rollout?
Well, I have a question, and that is there data from other cities and towns that looks at the changes? Like, for example, we had a lot of letters to the editor about smaller, either the 65 or even 35. So people I know that at work, for example, once it was rolled out, I totally agree that you need to roll out something that has to be consistent throughout, try it out, and then in a month or two, go back and figure it out, where you can either go larger, go smaller, whatever the case may be. The question is, do we know at any of these other communities that have rolled this out, what is the percentage of people that have gone in for a different size? What are the number of those people that have gone in for, like, say, 35? Like, I know somebody at work, she says, I have a 35-gallon one because I couldn't handle the bigger one. So I don't know exactly what Pawtucket is.
Mary, I know Rhode Island Resource Recovery, Kristen Littlefield sent out some data, and we know that Newport, Cranston, and Smithfield had a very successful rollout of 64-64. We're going 65.
I saw that data, but I was talking about the people that changed.
She didn't talk about just talking about what were his recommendations.
And I did read that. I did read all that information.
So,
Mary,
it's a good question.
Barella, I don't have any idea on the percentages of those that change their mind after the rollout. Honestly, I don't have that.
Because I think that would be, we probably don't have time to look at it, but it would be something that would be helpful, because you would know, like, if all these people thought they really needed small and then they realized that was like a bad situation, or if we really are going to go to every other week. I mean, and how you're going to do that with, I'm a person of one, a family of one, but I have always a lot of recyclables,
What I have found, and I spoke with a major trash hauler in the state, and they've done these rollout and distributions to other communities within the state. They said, whatever you decide on and you roll them out, let it ride for at least 4 to 6 weeks, because people really need to get used to them, and because they're going to change the way they do their trash and recycling collection internally themselves. And a lot of times, he said, people who thought they weren't going to like what they got ended up, it worked out for them. So he said, give it that break-in period before you go making immediate changes, because you'll end up chasing your tail on that one. He said, let it go, and then when people provide you with the reason that they want to go one way or the other, it's easy to assess at that point.
Well, it's great that we're giving everybody a choice as well. I mean, you're opening it up as well. If they need to move up, they can move up if it's justified.
I would classify it as an option.
Yeah.
Choice I'd like to stay away from, because I can't get into this, deliver this to this residence and that to that. There's no way to do that with 19,000 cards.
Uniformity in the rollout.
Correct.
And I would even say if they're not going to go out till sometime in April, they're going to be hitting up like at 6 weeks. Is going to be hitting up close to the 4th of July. That you might want to wait till after the 4th of July and let people see what their holiday trash is like and things like that.
Right.
Joe?
Hi, I'm Joe Terra. I've been with the Public Works 34 years, and I've been involved in trash and recycling since day one. I really started the program out years ago with the recycling, so I basically know what's out there on a regular basis. Your best option is to go with all 95s, one per house, and stick with it. There's not much difference if you look at them. We have the 64s out there now that people use. They put all bags in them, and on the sides of them is more barrels. So I don't think it's going to work out as you planned with these 64s, because they're not that big.
Well, that was a bomb, sir. Thank you.
And if you plan on recycling every other week, it takes 3 bins, like Kevin said, to fill the 64. If you take a ride on the route tomorrow, especially, say, Elizabeth Street through there, most of them houses have 4 or 5 bins out. So I don't know how it's all going to end up fitting. And if you buy 65s now and they're returned for the bigger ones later, what are you going to do with them?
Have 265s.
You're going to be spending them. No, we're only going to pick up one.
I'm just having fun with you, sir.
But every unit in a multifamily gets one. Is that right or no?
It's supposed to be one.
So let's stop just for a second. I think I think it's a fair point to bring up. I think that we don't know a few things. I think that you certainly are knowledgeable about this, and I'm not taking any of that away from you. We need to come up with a consistent for most, which would be, let's say, 80% or so. I would imagine that there will be some turnover. If I use myself as a yardstick, I'm thinking that I don't know what I need or what I don't need. And if I don't, how's anybody else going to know? It's got to be this is not a guess. This is education. This is a lot of effort and energy done. I know that we've had a lot of dialogue, all of us, about this. And that's why we've taken so long on this particular item. It's a really important thing. And remember something, this decision that's made here, we all go home, and you guys are going to get the calls when there's stuff, I didn't pick this up, and I didn't pick that up, and why didn't you take this, and why didn't you leave those things? So we're very cognizant of the fact that what decision is made here has some pretty big consequences
well, like
to
you
it.
you said you put out 3 blue bins.
4.
4.
You're welcome.
So there goes the 65. Now, if you have extra cardboard, where are you going to put it? At least with the 95, you get that little bit extra room.
I should probably just reserve my 95 now, is what he's saying. So knowing this, I'm certainly, I don't want to downplay this, but certainly anybody want to jump in here, but it seems to me...
The recycling ones, on the smaller size and the recycling, because the cardboard, like just the amount of boxes, people do online shopping, the amount of boxes you get, of all shapes and sizes and how you break them all down and whatever. Sometimes, if they're not too big, I just put them out the regular way. But, I think it's, or I can use that as my extra sidecar, as you say, if I had to. There's plenty of times if I've gone, where I've had, one of the older green bins and one of the blue bins full, and maybe, a box near there. So I'm a little concerned about that. There's the size, especially those of us who live downtown, to deal with 2 95 gallons where you put them, this and that and the other thing. But if our goal is to try to get to every other week recycling, and we have these big events throughout the year, which we do have in this town, then maybe we do need to go on the recycling one in the larger size, and then downscale it from there for the people that say, this is just too massive, I can't handle it, I don't need it, I'm never filling it. That type of thing. I know, that's just, I'm listening to it. And believe me, I would like to have the smallest one because I have, my own problems dragging stuff out and everything like that. So, but I also know what reality is, and I know that, whenever I go through, purging a bunch of papers and whatever, I'm dragging a lot of heavy stuff out.
Well, now you're going to remember, you're limited to 1 container.
Oh, I know, yeah.
No matter if it's a holiday or anything else.
Oh, I know, right. Right, that's what I mean. I think so on the recycling side, I think you could probably put 3 or 4 bins, 3 or 4 bags of trash, regular size 13-gallon bags of trash in the 64 probably. I'm not sure about the recycling thing. If we should do a split, that's just what I'm throwing out. That's just what I'm thinking out loud. What I'm thinking.
Mr. McBride, we'll eventually be able to do the split, right? After a month, if you have the 265-gallon barrels and you find that, you need a little bit more recycling room, then you'd be able to request the 95-gallon recycling bin, right? And you'd be able to keep the 64-gallon trash bin if you would really want to.
That's the $64,000 question right there, and that's how many of the larger do we order? Mm-hmm. That's the point we're making here. If we're going to look at for future operations, bi-weekly recycling collection, what's the right answer? These are the questions I've been working on for a good part of probably 3.5 to 4 years.
Well, and part of it, too, is, you want people to be able to start thinking about recycling a little bit more. And there's studies out there that show that, like, even in office places, if they decrease the size of a waste basket in an office space, recycling goes up 50%, right? And the same might hold true for maybe a 64-gallon trash barrel. People might start seeing it fill up a little bit and start learning, hey, you know what, I have to start recycling a little bit better.
But the question is, what's the right mix for ordering?
Yeah, you don't want to have, I think it's great that we can go back and reconfigure it after a month or two, but you don't want to have 60% of the town saying, oh, wow, I need a bigger one, because that's a waste of everything we've just purchased, I don't know what the right number would be. Would it be maybe a 20% of the population? That's why I'd asked that earlier question. Is it 20% that might say this is too big or too small or what have you?
The information that I have received from a major trash hauling company that has done multiple distributions, they distribute the larger size barrel or cart, and then the contingency is 3 to 5% of the smaller ones for people that want to back off on it, and that's what they recommended. I'm not sure that percentage would hold going the other way, because you're going up as opposed to down. Right. Those that go down, and they're not going to generate a whole lot more. Those that go up, there's probably quite a bit more than that. And that's the problem.
Can you just clarify that point, though, that was made in a multifamily home? Is it one barrel per household, or is it per building, or is it one for each unit?
The policy that we have that's been in place for I don't know how long, let's just say it's been as long as the trash volume, is 4 units and less. Mm-hmm. It's the same as any residence. You're allowed up to 4 barrels, up to 120 gallons. So in this case, it would be 4 units or less, 1 per unit.
Okay.
It's not 1 per building, it's 1 per unit.
Okay.
It's just like any single-family residence.
Right. Okay, just because that makes a difference. That's what I thought, but okay.
I walked in, Mr. Administrator, go ahead.
I will. Maybe I can fill in some of the blanks. We originally were looking at the 95s, but the feedback we were getting, and what was concerning to us, was the size of the 95s for our elderly population and the time it would take us for swapping them out to a 64. That's what we were concerned about. It's all about choice. So if a 64 isn't large enough, we'll swap it up to a 95, which is the larger one. And that 64 eventually will be used. We'll have them on hand at DPW, and eventually they'll be used as they get broken through damage or loss or whatever. So we're not too concerned. But when you look at them and you take a good look at it, we have a very large elderly population, and they're very apprehensive when they look at the size of it. They're safe, we understand, but they're very apprehensive. This is a huge project for us. This is 18,000 barrels we have to get out. So I think the most prudent thing would be stick with the 64s. It's been successful, as just mentioned, in 3 other communities with the 64s. Yep. Trash habits change with this system. Trash habits change, recycling increases. We're going from 2 22-gallon recycling bins to a 64. Again, we're not doing the every other week recycling pickup at this point in time. That's for the future. So I think the most prudent thing to protect the interests of our very large senior population, who many of them put their recycling carts in their garages. Many of them have single-car garages. That 95, the higher it gets, as you can see, it's really a one-dimensional view right now, but the higher it gets, the wider it gets. So we're concerned now people are going to be putting their trash outside, they're going to be going out in the winter, and I think the best thing for us at this point, and we certainly understand and respect the experience of the DPW, but it's working in other communities. The data is showing, URI and Councilman Lay did a study that the trash volumes reduce. So I think we should standardize with the 64 and allow the public the choice to decide. As soon as we get this rolled out, we'll get you on the list and we'll get you a larger bin if you really need it for capacity. So I think we need to move on it because we want to keep this deadline for beginning of April. 2 trucks are in, the other 2 should be in any time. A couple other points I wanted to make. The supplier of the trash carts also has a public relations portion of the product. So there'll be, door hangers, ads in the newspaper. There's a social media aspect for informing the public on how to put their trash curbside. Also, the 22-gallon bins, they are recyclable. The director did mention we will collect those eventually, but we were up at Resource Recovery. It's a separate recycling effort, but they do they compact them and they recycle them as in groups. So those are recyclable. And the last thing I want to add is this is well worth the effort. It's overdue. It's well worth the effort. In the last 5 years, 43 DPW injuries were directly related to trash pickup. That cost $310,000 in the last 5 years. So there's just everywhere we look, it's a benefit going to the system. So,
Mr. Administrator, I don't know why you didn't start this conversation because that was perfect. Absolutely perfect.
I think again, with many of the issues that we have to vet them out. And you could say, well, why didn't you have this on the agenda? I think it's important to hear how the different council members think because you are representing the public. Right. But what is most concerning to me, and these have been out for a couple days now, and the employees will tell you when our senior citizens come in, I want to see what their reactions are, and there hasn't been one yet that's comfortable with the 95. I'm concerned about that. I think we got to protect their interests and keep the choice to the public. If you want to go to the larger one, if you have more capacity, you have that option. As soon as we can, DPW will accommodate.
The question that I have is not just the 64, because I think the seniors are obviously more comfortable with that, but there are also people that want to be able to downgrade to the 35. That they don't want one even as big as that. Some of the seniors. I don't know, like if that's, and that was a lot of the reaction, I think, in the paper when we had that. And I mean, I think that if we're going to make those accommodations, then we might want to be able to look at that, any of it, after those couple of months. That's all I'm saying. It's not necessarily all the up to the. If we go 64, I don't think anybody has a question about the trash. I think it's all about the recycling, right? I mean, if you're going to go 2 64s, then can people go up or down once they find out? I mean, and realize they're not filling anything up, and they're living in their home and they have no one to help them, and they can't even deal with the 64. As long as they have an option, I think that's what's important. And I think that would have mitigated a great deal of the concern that people had been writing into the paper and talking and calling us about. If we just be able to say, look, down, and I did say to people that I talked to, I think once it's rolled out where we need uniformity, then we can look at changing the size, and because other towns have done that.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to, I think with all this analysis and all this talk, I'm feeling very comfortable to make a motion to move forward or to authorize DPW and the town administrator to move forward with the 6464 with the delayed time period to, obviously, the residents will have a choice and to move forward. But I think it's very important we move forward. There's a lot of benefits and, 65 trash and 65 recycling, a lot of different numbers to move forward that. So just wanted to correct the record, Lou, on that one, 65. And I think we need to move forward. There's a lot of benefits. We're going to have dry recycling, dry trash, so it's going to really help and also lower those workers' comp claims, and I think it's going to be a really good move for the town to move forward.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion?
Just very briefly, as the administrator pointed out and the director, this goes back to the days that I sat in that seat, and we already were looking at that, to automate as quickly as possible, exactly to the administrator's point, to prevent injuries, because I was dealing with that back then. And yes, it is long overdue, and I think it's time for us to move on. And so I support the motion made.
Excellent.
I think that, when people are watching this or they're watching us debate about this, they're probably thinking, wow, they're spending so much time, thinking about trash bins and the sizes and everything like that. But it is such a consequential decision about what we do. And my wife was kind of making fun of me today because I dropped my kids off at school and then I came back home and she said, "What took you so long? Where were you?" I said, "I was over at Ace Hardware looking at the trash bin sizes and everything." But and it was interesting because Ace Hardware doesn't sell anything more than a 50-gallon trash cart over there. So I took that to think that there really isn't much of a market out there for anything that's larger than the 50. I suppose people can maybe buy an extra 32 or something like that. But at the end of the day, I think that this is going to save us money because there's evidence out there that in other towns it has saved a significant amount of money because it's reduced the trash and reduced the tipping fees, and people just start recycling more. It's going to help out the workers. I see these guys getting up and down these trucks all the time. It's such a repetitive thing, and you can't help but think that during the summers and everything like that it can be a very difficult job. And so, and even during the winter, I mean, when you're dealing with the snow and everything like that. So I think that this is a good thing. I'm actually 120 gallons is a lot. It's a lot for people to use. I have a family of 4. We use 32 gallons of trash. And
I don't know how you do that. I
recycle. I do food scrap diversion. Those are the types of things we do, and those are the types of things that we have to tell people are options. And hopefully, when we roll out this recycling,
I do other stuff. I got to tell you, I can't get there, and I also. I know we have a motion in a second. We're going to move forward on this, but I got to tell you, I am not for forcing people to do something. And I will not sit here and social engineer this stuff. I don't want to force people to throw away less. I want them to throw away less. I want us to educate whether it's a 95 or a 65. The reason why ACE doesn't sell larger ones is that we won't allow them to, meaning you can't throw away a big container right now. It's against our ordinance. We won't pick it up. So more importantly, I'm okay moving forward. We have to make a decision on this. I think this is a reasonable size right now because there's choice. So I know a family of 6 that this is just not going to work right away and then forever, and a 95 will be more appropriate for them. As long as people have choice, as long as we will, make sure that those choices exist, I think we'll be fine. And there is no way to make everybody happy, but darn it, we're going to try, and darn it, we're going to be there when those issues come up. And if it turns out we need to make adjustments, we will, because we want this to be successful. There's been a lot of efforts. We all appreciate what you've done. Unless there's any other discussion, there's a motion and a second to move forward with 65 and 65 with choice down the road. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
I can't wait for mine.
Thank you.
I got so much duct tape on my blue one right now. It's not even funny.
Mr. Clerk, please.
And one wheel is broken, and I hope it doesn't blow over in the wind. Like on my other one, it's thinking a couple more months I'll have my new bins.
And you got good wheels on that too.
Yeah, I know.
Show them off.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is from my office. The council asked me to provide some sort of an indication as to what a charter review timeline would look like, which I provide. The first ad did appear in the newspaper for charter review commissioners, and I think the memo is self-explanatory as to just what we're up against.
I think we should do it. Did you get any responses to the first ad?
So I'm going to take a second. The memo is self-explanatory, but here's a couple of salient points on it. Deadline for submission of local questions for the November ballot, which, of course, is this year, is August 5th. That means that starting now, there's a lot of effort to review. As we talked about last time, we don't have to change anything, or we can change a whole bunch of things. I mean, there's no reason to make change unless it's necessary. I know that there's a couple of things that have come up, but what's this? And we need to get into those particulars right now. Tony, you had brought this forward for everyone's consideration. What would you like to do with our next step on this?
I still think that we should go ahead and still pursue this. As you pointed out, there are some things that we should consider, and I'm sure there will be a few other items that will surface as we begin the process.
I would like to make sure that the direction comes directly from this council, meaning I want to focus on particular issues and be open to the fact that if there's something found that we didn't consider, that obviously we consider it, but I think direction should come from us and look through the charter, suggest changes. For example, something that came up in the past was administrator versus mayor. I use that one because it's an easy one, right? Another, maybe less known example is we have a new chief of police. That was part of the charter that said X, Y, and Z has to happen. This much weighted for written exam, this much weighted for other things. Is that something that we want to review? I mean, the process worked excellent. Chief, it's nice to have you here. But do we want to improve that process? Is there areas for improvement? So there's a lot of examples like that. There is a lot, and I think if we don't want to hit this target just to hit the target. If it turns out there's more, I don't think there's any reason for us to push too hard on this. If there's a lot that we need to do, we need to push it off to our next election. I think that's more appropriate than trying to rush it. But I think we should at least try.
I don't personally feel like it's rushed, because even if we appointed someone, say in November, or you had the holidays. I mean, if we can get people by early February, and it was possible, I think if the next few months they could have a lot of meetings and really delve into some of the issues. Like, I do think now that you mentioned, the police chief situation, I think does warrant review, because it was a very long process, and I think in many ways tied the hands of the administrator. I think there are lots of little things, lots of maybe bigger things, and if we can get some people that have had experience in reviewing these in the past, and I know we talked about having a consultant work with them, I think that you could get done pretty effectively in the next several months.
So you'd like to take the next? Is that so?
I agreed. I mean, having served on the last Charter Commission, it can be accomplished. It depends, who sets the tone, how the tone is set, and but I agree. The last time we did not have a consultant. If there is a consultant on board, and we suggest, we have some sort of direction from the council, it could move much quicker.
Excellent. Okay. Is there any other discussion on this? What's the motion? You'd like to move forward?
Yeah.
Well, I would say let's. Go ahead.
Your applicants are coming in for the next meeting. That's the plan. That you hopefully will have names. I think what the council has to do is decide. And not necessarily now, but to have a plan as to how you're going to make those appointments. One of the suggestions that was made was that it has to be 9 people. It might be suitable for expediency's sake to have each council member appoint 1 person, perhaps the administrator appoint 1 person, and then 3 at large that would be appointed by the council. I know that has been done in the past, and that was done successfully.
I think it's an excellent suggestion
in the past.
Could expedite.
And then you're going to have to see who you get for applicants. But obviously, if your plan is to appoint someone yourself, you may want to go out and seek that person.
So would we get them? Would we make our appointments based on anybody we know and we talk to, or would it that is interested, or would we go from the list of applicants that we feel comfortable with?
I think the answer is yes.
Yes,
as in
both.
Mm-hmm. Both. Yeah. Whatever you want to do.
So, okay.
I like that. I think that's a great next step. And then we can, so it would be at our next council meeting, which is our January 29th meeting, that we can come with an appointee and look at what we've had for response back from our ad for the general public. I think now that we talk about it here and then put it out for advertising again, I think we'll get more applicants at this point.
I think it would be nice, and I don't do it. I mean, I read it, but I don't do it. I know Tim does it. Steve, you've done it. Like, put it on maybe around town Bristol that we're looking to make revisions. I mean, to get a wider circulation of people knowing about it and the information and where to submit their applications.
I can put it on the town's social media and website.
Yeah.
So does this council have objection to what was suggested, which was each of us appoint 1 member, the administrator appoint 1 member, and then appoint 3 from the public? Any disagreement there?
No. Just should we appoint any alternates just in case people start and then they can't complete it? Anybody to step in? Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Just, yeah, my thought is 9 is a large committee, and having 9 plus alternates sit there might be a little unwieldy.
Yep.
I have to agree. Having said there, you are so right, so much
You want to get
antagonist.
something done.
Exactly.
Right,
That's
right,
correct.
exactly.
And if somebody falls, by the way, so hopefully not one of our appointees, but if it's anybody else, I would say as long as you end up with at least 7 members, then it's a fair number.
So, Mr. Clerk, it's at this point we really don't need if we have agreement here is for how we're going to appoint. What's our next step, or Mr. Solicitor for next step?
You may want to formalize that through a motion to just formalize your process.
How did we do that last time, Lou? How was
Well, the last
people
time I think
selected?
they were all selected at large.
I think they were too.
Yeah.
When were
I'm looking, it was like 86 when it was done this way.
Oh, I wasn't even on.
Yeah.
I wasn't on the council. I mean,
Okay.
You would have been, probably.
So why don't we get a motion for what was already proposed with 3 members from the public and then the 6 being appointed by this council and the administrator? And do we need a timeline on that, or can we just stop there at this moment and then kind of come together with our next ideas?
I think that would be sufficient for now. I mean, right now you have one applicant and you have just this matter before you. That's all you have. So hopefully you can take some action and make some announcements at the next meeting.
Perfect.
I mean, I know that in a lot of state commissions and so forth, this is, the speaker appoints someone, and this, the Senate president, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I would give it a try. I just have to say I'm not that comfortable with that. I'd rather see who's out there and who wants to be on it than kind of go drumming up like individual people that that we're not all going to interview. So I want people are interested in me appointing them. I'd like to know.
I think you would have that option. You certainly don't. There's no requirement that you come in with a name at the next meeting. You can look at the list that we get of potential applicants, and then you do have the 3 members. The only reason why I proposed this, well, for 2 reasons, was it worked very well when it was done the last time, which was quite a while ago, but it worked very well. The other thing, too, is I know there's challenges to doing interviews.
Right.
And trying to set up interviews for 5 people to interview 9 people, we may not get this done until after the deadline for submission to the legislature, because we just have those kind of challenges to try to do that. People are very busy, and it's hard to do it. So that just seemed to be a good way to get the lion's share of the body selected without having to go through the open meeting law.
So could I ask you to submit? Can you send to us who was on the last one? I believe Tony was on the last one. I think I went to a couple of meetings. I believe my brother, who was a former town administrator, was on it as well.
He was.
Right. And I mean, I think there's people that have served in some of these capacities as administrator, council people, department heads that would have a sense of what needs to be looked at. That we could maybe really brainstorm. I think a former administrator would be a good person on that group.
We have we need to schedule an upcoming workshop. We could incorporate this particular conversation into that, including where we focus. We can go through what has happened in the past, decide whether or not we want to look at it again, and again, give focus from this council to where we want to take next steps. But I would say right now, the next step would be a motion to follow that appointment structure, and then at our next meeting, we can talk about next steps.
So agreed.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, I was
please.
just going to state that Councilwoman Perrell was concerned, but she already came up with an appointee.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I don't know about that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay. The next item is a proposal considering the evaluation, conservation, and loan agreements for certain flags which are property of the town of Bristol with a proposed partner organization, Varnum Continentals.
I thought you were here for the trash. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I enjoyed the conversation.
I'm just having fun with you. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So my name is Patrick Donovan. I'm the Vice President of the Varnum Continentals. Thank you for considering our proposal to save Rhode Island military history. We're an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization. We've existed since 1907. We own and operate 2 museum properties, the James Mitchell Varnum House Museum, as well as the Varnum Memorial Armory Museum, which houses the largest collection of Rhode Island military history in existence anywhere. And we take that mission very seriously. Our goal, our objective, is to promote patriotism and service of all kinds to our state and country. And so I'm excited to be here. I worked with Lou earlier this summer. We have a professional textile conservator that's here with us tonight, Maria Vasquez. We were here earlier. There's 6 flags that are next door in the annex that are in a very bad state of decay. We know from the 3 flags that we looked at that they are definitely 19th century flags. There is a very strong suspicion that these flags are related to General Ambrose Burnside. And we were able to see enough of one of those flags that I have a strong suspicion that it is the headquarters flag of the 9th Army Corps of the Union Army of the Potomac. Very important historical artifact that is well deserving of conservation. So our proposal, in a nutshell, is to bring the flags out of the annex, take them to the Varnum Armory. We have a new conservation storage facility in a work area. We want to unroll these flags for the first time in many, many decades. They're literally falling apart into pieces. And we want to figure out what they are and do a condition assessment. And then based on that, we'll decide which flags are worthy of conservation. And we will do all of this at our expense. The only thing I'm asking in return is that we are allowed to display these flags on a long-term basis. And of course, we would work with the town of Bristol. This is in the agreements that we wrote up. That you guys would be allowed to have those flags for special events and things like that under our direction and care, of course. And we would, of course, give credit. Ownership will remain with Bristol. We would give credit to the town of Bristol on the signage. But it's our hope that we would be able to display these flags in our main hall. We get on between 5,000 and 6,000 people a year that come through the building, including school groups, scout groups, that sort of thing. But we have climate control, we have security, we have the expertise to care for these flags properly. So thank you for considering, and I hope you'll support it.
So I got to tell you, initially when I saw this, I said, I don't want to give up. Let me get to the end because you like it. I don't want to give up what belongs to us, especially something so significant. When you say it's in the annex, that's a nice way of saying it's in the glass cabinet in the Burnside building, rolled up, and you can't see it anyway.
Yes.
So that's really unfortunate. And I personally would rather have it with your capable hands on display that any Bristolian can go see. Right now, no one can see it. Anybody touching it, as you rightly pointed out, it's going to fall apart. It already is falling apart.
Yes.
So bringing it back to a place where it can be viewed and enjoyed and respected, I think, is absolutely appropriate. I have a question in regards to this agreement. In the past, we've had, it was brought to my attention about the fire department had a fire truck, that it was a question of who owned it and all of that stuff. How do we make sure that when all of us aren't here, that this isn't forgotten about, that that it's reviewed, I don't know, every 10 years, and I don't mean so it comes back to us, but that it's that whoever's sitting here is reminded that this is the town of Bristol's, but this is what we decided to do.
I think the best way to do something like that is, it would seem to me on an annual basis, maybe during the July 4th festivities, that they be displayed here at the town hall, and that that becomes part of the contract that on an annual basis, it'll be displayed in the town of Bristol so that you don't forget about it.
Keep in mind, these are very large flags, so the flag is roughly the size of the space between the two tables, and they're going to be in a large frame with museum plexiglass, so it'd be a bit of an operation to move the flag.
Maybe we'll have a picture of the
I had no idea they were that big.
Yeah. The regimental-sized flags.
So I would ask then, and I don't know what my colleagues think, but if we could make sure that I'm concerned that agreements like this, although, as you heard me say, I think are wonderfully appropriate, I don't want it to be forgotten about. You know, I don't want it to.
I can understand.
It's a part of Bristol. It belongs to Bristol, and I think it's wonderful. But when all of us, and Mr. McBride, seem you.
I just, I have no say in this decision, but I will tell you that if you have ever visited the Varnum Armory and seen the artifacts and the history that is stored in that building, you would be taken back. And to have this particular flag, if it is substantiated to the degree that he believes that it is, displayed in the Varnum Armory with the history and the other artifacts that are in that building, I think that in itself is a tribute to this town in itself, and the fact that it would be noted there that this is on display. I think from what I know of that organization and what I have seen in that building, there is no better or more appropriate place for it to be displayed. And all I can think of is St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin, Ireland, where they have all of these flags from previous military organizations on display. So the general public can see them, and it's an incredible thing to behold. And I do think that the solicitor's recommendation, maybe there's some way to note that in the 4th of July celebration if they've gone through and had the opportunity to verify what they believe is the fact.
We will certainly have the agreement in place that this is a loan. So that the ownership remains with the town of Bristol, and it's on loan. And I concur with you that it's in East Greenwich, this facility, and it is amazing.
Yeah. Now, do you charge for this to go into the museum?
No, it's free of charge. Our whole mission is to share this with the public, so we do that
The reason I
best
was
we
asking
can.
is I was thinking if you did charge even a nominal fee, then, having it free to like our school children or to Bristol residents.
Sure.
Just getting a bus to go there would be an expensive proposition for a kid, for the school kids, but they wouldn't have to pay to get in. So.
Yes. Incidentally, I think there's a lot of press opportunities with this. If these flags turn out to be what we think they are, I think we can get a lot of positive coverage that the town of Bristol is doing this proactively to save history. Rhode Island PBS actually is interested in filming the conservation work on these flags. They want to actually film the unfurling of these flags for the first time to capture that on film.
So I would, again, I think this is outstanding. I would ask that Mr. Solicitor, Mr. Clerk, I'm happy to defer to you if whether it's a 10-year resolution, every 10 years that there's something that it exists, and because it's amazing how important this is and how things change and we forget. And I don't want it to be forgotten. I think it's outstanding. So.
Yeah, I think it's great.
So what's this council's pleasure?
I would move that we enter into a loan agreement with the Varnum Continentals to do what they can to preserve these historic flags. I don't know if we need any more. And that our solicitor will work with the organization, and our solicitor and our administrator, to come up with the appropriate language for the loan documents, whatever information.
Yeah, I'll second the motion. I'm also quite excited to see that these flags are going to be preserved and the history is going to be shown a little bit brighter. I mean, I think it's going to be really, really nice. I just keep that communication coming back to us so we know what they end up being. I'm really excited to see what you find out. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's awesome.
And just if you could just add to authorize the town administrator to sign on behalf of the town.
Oh, yes, I'll add that.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for taking the interest. Thank you.
Okay. The next item is in regard to a potential modification to the zoning of 500 Wood Street. It's in consideration of a planning board recommendation for a change of the zoning map. to change the conditions of the urban rehab LDP, which is already in place. This is a first reading and call for a public hearing. Initially, I put in that we could have the public hearing on February 19th, considering only the Bristol Phoenix advertising.
Actually, Lou,
Are we
I
back
didn't
in place?
update you. We're back on February 19th.
Okay.
Let's leave it just the way
Sorry
it is.
about that.
All right,
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't get to you.
Well, that's,
So
call
this
for
is
a public hearing on February 19th.
So moved.
so there's a motion and a second to call for a public reading on February 19th.
And to constitute his first reading.
Yes.
Thank you. And to constitute as
constitute a first reading.
So there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Sure, no problem. The next item is a request for executive session regarding the acquisition of open space. Following that is item J1, which is bid number 922 for transfer station slab repairs. We have 6 bids received. The first is from Structural Preservation Systems of Cheshire, Connecticut, in the amount of $238,710. The second from Hart Engineering Corporation of Cumberland, Rhode Island, in the amount of $251,000. The third from D'Ambra Construction Company Incorporated of Coventry, Rhode Island, in the amount of $309,300. The fourth from New England Building and Bridge Company Incorporated of Providence in the amount of $288,750. The fifth from Tower Construction Corp. of Cranston, Rhode Island, in the amount of $194,000. And the final from J.J. Cardosi Incorporated of Riverside, Rhode Island, in the amount of $191,000.
Make a motion, we refer this to the town administrator to act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Well, I have one. $238,300,000. Could you just remind everybody what this actually is for? I was looking at the administrator, but certainly, Mr. Director.
Yeah, or the if you go to the transfer station on the lower deck of the compactor building, the concrete slab that is installed with the 2 compactor boxes slide in underneath. The concrete supporting those 2 boxes is deteriorated to the point where it's eroded and needs to be repaired. The complex nature of this particular project is the fact that that slab is on piles, so that it doesn't settle, like the whole building is on piles, and that's part of it. So this has to be done in a certain special fashion, and that's why the expense. This is not. This is a need-to-do project, I guess, is the best way for me to qualify it. It has to be done. We're running out of time, and certainly we've got to execute this as quickly as we can.
Thank you. There was a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next is the periodic report provided by Alan Klepper of the Bristol County Water Authority.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to receive and file. I just wanted to add that was shared with me that the Providence Water Company is looking for some massive increases over the next couple of years. So we just keep our eyes open on that and how it pertains to us, because we are that's where all of our water comes from at this point in time. So we have a motion and a second to receive and file. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next is another request for executive session. Following that is some provided by the Solicitor, draft legislation and amendment to Rhode Island General Laws 4433-3, and this has to do with tangible business property tax.
You have had in the past at the council meetings discussions about the possibility of exempting a certain amount of tangible property taxes for small businesses in town. What this does is it just provides you with the enabling authority. It doesn't set a rate. It doesn't set an amount. That's all for a subsequent meeting. This gives you the ability to adopt an ordinance that you would then decide what, if any, type of break you would give.
It's very much like our earlier conversation about the dancing and entertainment. It gives us the possibility.
This was like when we agreed on it, the legislature wasn't in session or was near the end, so now we have to go forward. And so I would move that we adopt the resolution, go forward to send this on to our legislature and and hopefully get it passed sooner rather than later so that we can take our next steps.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And yet another executive session, all of which will be handled at the end of the public agenda, I hope.
Gosh,
And-
yes.
Okay, sounds good. And then we have the individual council member agenda items, beginning with the chairman.
We had a lot to go over this evening, so I will say good night. Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney.
That was quick.
Thank you.
Just wanted to wish everybody a happy new year, and I hope everybody has a prosperous one. Speaking, since we're on the trash subject, I wanted to let everybody know that Clean Ocean Access, if you go to their website, www.cleanoceanaccess.org, you can compost curbside. They will come to your house and they will pick it up, so that it's a way to reduce their tipping fees, reduce your trash. I know we're moving to new trash bins, but it's a great way. Go on the website. It is $170. There is a coupon in there, but if you want to make an impact on the environment, this is a great way to make that impact. So again, www.cleanoceanaccess.org. And you have a wonderful night. Thank you very much.
Mr. Texera.
Happy New Year to all.
Ms. Perella.
I want to wish everyone a happy, healthy, prosperous new year, and also to welcome Sarah Klein back to work and also to our meetings. Nice to see you back and doing well.
That deserves a round of applause. It's really nice to have you back. Got something on your nose there, Steve.
Mr. Lay.
I have nothing. Happy New Year.
Town administrator agenda items.
Oh, this is good. Most of you yielded your time, so I want to make up
That's
for that.
not how this works, Mr. Administrator.
Happy New Year, and I just want to note that this seemed like a innocuous meeting, but think about what was accomplished. Tonight you talked about zoning with the Bristol Industrial Park. Excuse me. Not long ago we had a discussion, there was a recommendation, and you took a very strong position with looking at the future, and it's panning out very well. We did find a buyer for the property, and our hopes are that it'll be back on the tax rolls and a good area of Wood Street and productive. So that's a great success story, and it's on the right track. We talked about automation tonight. You can already see the benefits of it. We've shifted 2 employees from DPW with this anticipated process, and daily, I don't know if you've noticed, the water jet truck is out almost every day. They're doing a couple of streets a day, thousands of feet of sewer lines under the road that we seldom think about are being flushed and cleaned to prevent backups. So automation is already helping us move forward. Tangibles you talked about, the resolution is going to be great, and I'm sure 200 or 300 small businesses in town are going to be happy that they're not going to have to fill out those forms and maybe save them a little bit of money. So that's business friendly. And I'm looking forward to the year ahead. The solar's on track. The lease agreement was signed by the council, and the developer is in permitting right now, so that's moving. The police department is as strong and professional as ever. Just today I got the 90-day management plan update, and I'll be emailing it to the council members to take a look at. It's 12 pages, and it's a remarkable amount of accomplishments that are in there already, reaccredited nationally and state, so the police department's doing excellent. Dozens of roads are going to be paved again this year, hopefully. We're planning on that. All those neighborhood drainage projects that are getting done, we're in planning there. So that with our grant money of over $1 million from CDBG for those downtown sidewalks around the Wood Street area, that's on track. The Marina Expansion, we have a meeting tomorrow. That's on track for this summer, late this summer. And the good thing about that is that's revenues. We've talked about it before. Fuel pumps, revenues. It's all good. It's all good for our residents to supplement their property taxes. One other thing, March 15th is the deadline for the new tax exemption for disabled veterans, which they deserve everything. So I'm so happy that the council moved on it. The 5 of you voted on that. for disabled veterans, and the deadline is 15th through the tax department here. So we're looking forward to continued progress. We all are working well with the council, and I want to thank you for your support of administration, and looking forward to this year. We're going to keep going. That's like what we like to say.
Well, it's what can happen when people work together and put the best interests of the community forward, right? You should send some cheat sheets to our congressional delegations in Washington and other places.
Say, see?
Not congressional, this, everybody's, like the United States.
I know what you meant.
Good night.
Motion would be to convene into executive session pursuant to
4246585, acquisition of open space, and 4246582, litigation regarding the Bristol Industrial Park and Powers versus Town of Bristol.
So move. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.